Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Will. This is another edition of Noise and Coffee. Got my cup. I know a few of you do too. Hope you're having a good day. As always, this is live in real time with just a sketch of where I'm going. So let's have some fun. Today I have the Geiger Counter stomp box, which is just off to my left here. You can see my hand comes through. And what I'm feeding into that is my guitar. So just to give you the lay of the land, I have my Telecaster. This is going directly into the WMD Geiger Counter there. Input out from this directly into my interface, which is, as we can see, a Fast Track Pro, sampling 48 kilohertz. I'll leave this up here because we're going to get some pretty hot levels, I think, so I want to keep an eye on that. My basic goal or idea is to get this sort of crunchy, wonderful bit crushing sample rate reduction coming from the Geiger counter, with almost no real performance of anything going into it. So it's plugged in my guitar, which just has some noisy pickups, scratchy pots. I may or may not even play a note on that. I'll just kind of let some of the noisiness through my guitar go into the Geiger counter, and then we're gonna harness that and then create a ton of layers in Kyma. That's the gist. If you have any questions, I'll try to keep my eye on the chat. I'm doing a lot of things, performing, keeping an eye on the stream, looking there, and at the same time trying not to embarrass myself too much. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. I'm gonna grab a sample, or excuse me, live input is what I'm gonna do, and this is coming in input 1 on my interface. The Geiger counter is, so I'll just grab input channel 1. Okay, that box is checked. That's cool. That's just going to let the signal through. Let me bring my DSP back. Yeah, we can see a little something happening there, but not much yet. Then I want to bring some pan, some spatiality into it. This guitar is just in mono, so we would only hear it either in one channel or the other, or an equal mix of both. So I'll just grab this panner, plunk it here, have a look what we've got. Kind of have the idea to slowly drift left and right, so I'll use a triangle for that. The triangle function, Kyma goes from 0 to 1 back to 0 over a certain amount of time, hence the name triangle. And I'll just give this a length of 23 seconds. That's arbitrary, just kind of nice and slow. So remember, in Kyma, 0 is the left channel, 1 is the right, intermediate value somewhere in between. So we're going, 1 is saying turn on, go, and then repeating triangle. So it's going to go 0 to 1, back to 0 over 23 seconds, and it's just going to continue to keep doing that in perpetuity because it just has this 1 here to stay on. It's like a light switch. Once it's on, it's just going to keep staying on until it's turned off. From here, I'm going to grab a delay, and I've actually been using a lot of Never Engine Labs stuff. You can just grab a delay from your prototype strip up here, but there's this NEL match stereo delay, which is kind of cool. So this is in one of the capsules that Christian Vogel made. So I can just take this, plunk it onto the line after pan, and now I've got my live input. It's coming in, getting pans slowly, left to right, back to left over 23 seconds. Oh, I got 2 pans. And then it's going into this delay with feedback. So I'm going to basically kind of make a looper, but it's like an overdub mode. So it just keeps adding on to itself, and then everything's just slowly sort of decaying to 0 based on how much feedback there is. So it's not exactly a perfect copy of the same amplitude every time. I kind of want a longer thing happening here, so I'll make this 23 seconds as well. So up to 23-second delay, and this fader kind of determines that. When the delay scale value is a 1, we have the full value of this. If it was a 0.5, it would be half the delay time, so that'd be what, 11 and a half seconds. But I don't really want to change the delay for this, so I'm just going to make it a 1, which means that it's going to continue to be 23 seconds. Slew rate relates to how quickly it changes if this changed, so I'll just make that a 0. Feedback, right, is how much of the signal's fed back to the input, so I will leave that because I want to be able to change it in real time. Scale is how much input. You can see where 1 is full amplitude and 0 is completely attenuated. So 1 full amplitude in this case meaning unity gain from my preamp where my Geiger counter is plugged into my interface. And then blend is going to be the wet dry. So 0 is completely dry, just what's coming in. 1 is 100% the delayed signal. Somewhere in between has a bit of wet and dry. Alright, let's just check that out so far. That's enough talking with no sound. So I've got a basic structure. I'm just giving a very little volume from my guitar. We'll see if anything is coming in from that. Here we go. Just gonna give myself a bunch of stuff to work with right now. Bring the VCS up so you can see it. Okay. So if I go bring this blend all the way down, we can hear this is just what's coming in. No delayed signal. It's still going into the feedback loop though. If I go up here, we can see this is only the delayed signal without any original. It'd be hard to decipher that. But somewhere in between, we can hear some of my performance here. And then feedback. The higher the feedback, the longer the sound is going to stick around, essentially. It's just going to keep feeding back on itself and go for a very long time. Or I can bring it way down low and it'll sort of quickly evolve and change. So you can just continue to find cool stuff here. Bring this up a bit. Okay, it's a start. It's not nearly noisy enough for this. So let's grab something to do that can take this stuff that we're bringing in and do something more with it, make a lot of layers. So I'm gonna grab a memory writer, and this will let me write some of the sound into my Pacarana memory in real time. So I'll call the recording, I'll call it Geiger Counter. Capture duration is how long I want it to be recorded in for. And It's arbitrary, but I'll just make it 11 seconds. And trigger, I'll leave it 1 so that it's going. And I'll also check cyclic, which means it's just similar to the overdub thing I was talking about in the delay, except for instead of, in this case, keeping what was there, it's going to overwrite it. So it's going to record for 11 seconds, and then as it comes back around, the 12th second is going to replace the first second. And so we just constantly something new every 11 seconds, which is kind of cool. So it'll continue to change. All right, and now I'm going to just take this and plunk it. I'll add it. So I'm going to put on the plus there. Okay, and then we see that we have, it has its own kind of source sample that comes with it. That's not quite what I want, so I can go back in here, memory writer, drag the delay into there. All right, and so now whatever craziness I'm harnessing through the Geiger counter into the delay with feedback is then going out into the memory writer. As we can see, this doesn't have an audio output. These graphics, all these shapes mean something. So the mixer has an audio output. This delay has an audio output. This does not. I have another video on that in case you're curious. But we need to grab this information and do something with it. So here's where I'll grab a sample. And I want to put my memory writer name, Geiger counter, so I'm actually going to copy it, because if I even get it a little wrong, it won't work. So I'll put sample Geiger counter, and then gate 1, takt time, I'll leave all this how it is. One thing I will change is frequency, so this is the rate of playback of this sample. Make it kind of like a tape machine, Ferris speed, so we can scale the rate of playback. It's like having control over the inches per second, if that analogy makes sense or means anything to you. And then I'll play with this stuff, some more of this stuff in a little bit, but I want to also check from memory writer. There we go. And now I can take this sample and I'll plunk it into this mixer. Same mixer. Alright, so just a quick recap. I've got my live input coming in. It gets panned. That signal gets delayed and fed back on itself. Some of that goes straight to the output we hear. Some of it goes into this memory writer where it's recorded cyclically for 11 seconds. This recording goes into another sample, which is being scaled by a fader we'll see here in a minute. Ferris speed, so just creating one layer. Let's check it out now. Close this. Okay, just giving myself a lot to work with. Cool. When Ferris speed is 1, it's playing back the sample at the rate it was recorded. When it's half, it's down an octave. You can hear that layer in there. There's the Ferris speed. Okay. Close, still not big enough. My friend Orshibu taught me something, which is that if you're not scripting or replicating, you're in the wrong place. So let's get a replicator involved. I'm just going to make a lot of copies. And what I'll do is just grab this sample, bring it over here. This isn't the only way of doing this kind of stuff. It's just kind of how I work. Build a little thing in one area, drag it, bring it back to my main thing, which is happening over here. Conceptually, that just makes the most sense to me. So I'll have my same sample, and then it's going into a replicator, which is going to make 4 copies. Amp-Low is going to function as a master fader over all those replications. 4, again, not quite enough. Let's try 7. And then we have Varispeed. Anywhere we have a Capitalk event value like this, it's going to get renamed, depending on our settings here. But the way this is set up, it will get renamed and appended with a suffix _1, and then this suffix gets incremented. So we're going to see _1, _2, _3, up to the number of replications, 7. So now what I'll do is drag this back and replace my sample. Alright, so now I've got 7 replications of this Geiger counter recording. Let's check it out. Again, notice I'm not really playing anything on my guitar. I will turn up the volume now a little just to give myself something to work with. Amp-Low, remember, is the level over all the replications. Turn that up. As I change these Varispeed faders, start to hear more layers, like essentially detuning. Not that anything's really tonal here, but bring down the replications. If I go down, remember, blend all the way at the bottom is just what's coming in now. No delayed signal. So we can hear just exactly what's coming from the Geiger counter. And it's still being recorded in. So as I bring up the blend, we'll hear everything I'm doing in layers. No replications or anything, this is just a delay with feedback. I think it's sounding pretty cool. Pretty intense. A lot of fun to make. I don't know how fun it is to listen to, but when you make it, it's really exciting. Some other things we can do to create more variance and variety inside here. I have set loop checked, which means that it's looping this sample, and they're all starting at the same, all the replications are starting at the same point. 0 is the beginning, 1 is the end. So one other thing I can do is just type an exclamation point in here, loop start, loop end, and then similarly to Varispeed, how we had those 7 Varispeed faders, we'll now have 7 loop start faders and 7 loop end faders, so I can change where each replication starts and ends in the recording. Just creating even more variety. Let's check that out. Got to start from scratch every time. There's something coming in. I'm just turning the volume knob up on my guitar and I'm leaning down there. I'm going to build it slowly. So we're getting half the dry signal, half the wet signal. Enough feedback. Bring in the replications. And you notice all these are the same. Varispeed's all the same. All the loop starts are the same. All the loop ends are at the same. That's not particularly exciting. If I roll these dice, I can get some randomness. Keep recording this in. Alright, by now you've either left or maybe you love this as much as I do. One thing I'm noticing is that there's not really any dynamics, which can be cool. It's nice to just have an onslaught of sound, but sometimes having something come in and out is exciting. Keeps things interesting, at least to me. So one thing we can do to bring some dynamics in would be to get like an envelop this whole sound with a function or a shape, and we can do that kind of rhythmically. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what I'll do is grab a function generator. And right now these are its settings. I'm going to change its wavetable to be rectangular. And if I control click, we can see it. It's basically just a line, horizontal line. So it's either off or on, which is what I want. So it's either the sound is just going to come in and be just nuts, or not at all. And that's what I want. So that rectangular is great for that. Trigger. Let's trigger it every so often. I could do this a number of ways with key downs and so forth, but maybe we'll just sort of automate it and do a repeating ramp. And we'll make this a Cavitalk event value of length. So ramp is a function that goes from 0 to 1, and so this rectangular shape will be triggered when there's a 1. And when does that one come? Well, it depends on how long of a fader or how long of a time I make with this fader. So we can have a variety basically. On duration is the time it takes to make this shape or realize it. So I could do it very quickly, like standard wavetable length in Kyma is 4096 samples. So I could do that and it would be really fast, or I could make this like 3 months and just really slowly. Nobody wants to be here that long with me though, I'm sure. So again, I'll just leave it a fader on duration, and okay, that's only half of it. Now I want to grab a VCA. The modular world is a voltage controlled amplifier, and what I can do is just grab my function generator, bring it in here, and then I'll take my whole sound, this mixer, drag it onto here. Alright, and so now what's happening is this whole sound we had up to here is now being multiplied. That's what's happening in here. This VCA multiplies its inputs together to apply an amplitude envelope to a sound, use the sound and the envelope generator as inputs to this sound. So this function is enveloping our entire sound, and so it's going to bring it in sometimes, it's going to bring it out sometimes, and let's check it out. So length is 1 and on duration is 0.5, so that's why we're kind of getting this like alarm like sound right now. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have an on duration longer than this length, so I'm just going to change this for like 10 seconds. So now every 7 seconds it stays on for 2 seconds. Gives me time to tinker. Gives the audience a breather. Get some variety, really just clicking. go. I'm just going to make a piece now with our creation. A little longer now. My under exceeds my length of this here because it never turns off. It never seems to. Alright, cool. So there it is. Some noise with the WMD Geiger Counter. My attempt at a drone with next to no performance from my guitar. Just taking the Geiger Counter into Kyma. Having a lot of fun in there. By now you're probably wondering, well, what do I do if I don't have a Geiger Counter? Well, you're not going to have as much fun. I'm just being honest. This thing is a lot of fun. But just use some other input. Any live input. It could be noise from pedals or whatever. Or you could even use something more harmonic right from the start. Guitar, piano, your voice, anything else. And still follow this same structure. Depending on your tolerance for dissonance, you might want to tune these Varispeed faders. So like, remember octaves is having or doubling of frequency, 2 to 1 or 1/2. So 0.26 is almost 0.25, which would be what, half of half. So a quarter of the original playback rate. If that doesn't mean anything to you, just Google Wikipedia tuning values and put the ratio in here for like a perfect fourth or a major third or whatever alternate tuning system, and you'll be in that tuning space. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. Coffee time. Thanks for being here. Ask questions. Drop a line if you have anything you want to say or questions. I'll help you out, and we'll see you next time. I have a sale in my store if you want a mug like this through tomorrow. Join the club. Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here.